Hi, everyone. This is Megan.
And this is Steven.
And this is the Synchrony podcast where we talk about transforming apostolic dating culture and ending loneliness in the church. And I sound a little bit like a chain smoker tonight, but I promise you that's not the case.
It's the ring around the rosy of our whole family going through one sickness after the other.
Yeah, they say, like, every time I tell someone this who is a parent, they're like, oh, they're building their immune system. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, but like when does it stop? Is this like one of those medieval structures that's going to take like 3 generations of monarchs to complete? Like, at what point is it built, you know?
Once
Like,
they move out.
Yeah, I guess.
It is built enough for it to not exist in your house anymore.
Right. So anyway, we're going to proceed tonight through the gravelly voice, and I apologize to anyone that really has a problem with that noise.
It's okay. You'll just start heading towards your true desire of a career of a jazz singer.
I know. There's an encore career somewhere where I just go on those like cruises that like cater to folks of a certain generation and sing like American classics in front of a piano.
Yeah.
For like tips. I'm there. We don't actually talk. This is funny. We don't actually talk about music at all, or we haven't yet, and how big of a part of my life that's been, and like our life that's been. So it's funny because, anyway, this is not important. It's just funny because like if I meet people in church, that's historically how I've met them.
Yeah.
Through music. And now it's funny because there's a bunch of people that I've met now across the whole movement, different cities, different organizations, and we haven't talked music at all, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
It's just different.
Going forward, if you want to hear about updates about Synchrony, we're going to probably start doing that near the end of the podcast instead of the beginning.
Just like all the stuff that the project is doing and things for the community and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because not everyone that is listening to the podcast is actually in Synchrony and actually cares about the updates.
When we say in Synchrony, we mean like in the pipeline.
Yeah, that's
going through matchmaking. I'm clarifying for them.
Oh, like, yeah duh.
Yeah, I know you know. Oh, man.
All right, so what are we talking about tonight, babe?
Okay, this is an interesting topic to talk about when my voice is so bad, because I have a feeling I'm going to get very impassioned about it and my voice is going to crack, which is probably good because it's a kind of a spicy topic and it will need some comic relief. So that's probably good.
You're just ongoing comic relief is what you're saying?
Yeah, just to lighten the tone. So in my head, I've been calling this episode Smart Women and Gentle Men. Not gentlemen as one word, but gentle men. Men who are gentle.
Yeah. And
so basically I want to talk about 2 categories, I guess, of people that I often encounter in the Synchrony Project who, for a variety of reasons, have really felt like the dating scene is more challenging for them. And I believe that it is to a degree because of how our culture views certain attitudes or behaviors. So
how they view femininity and masculinity.
Yeah. So this is going to be one of those conversations where we talk about the difference between biblical gender and how the Bible defines the role of a man and the role of a woman versus our cultural attitudes around gender and gender behavior. And I don't want anyone to get all like upset or think that this is going to devolve into some kind of like super, like secular academic treatise on gender. I'm not about that, right? But we need to, if you've been listening to the podcast for any length of time, you've heard us sort of differentiate between doctrine and culture, right?
Yeah.
Doctrine is what we believe. It's the why of our faith. It's the core of who we are. It's what we hearken back to time and again. It's what God calls us to walk in, right? Doctrine is above culture. It transcends the difference between the first century church in, the Middle East and Greece and early Europe and the culture that we have now in 21st century United States of America, it transcends time and place. It transcends ethnicity. Doctrine is the place to which we aspire and what guides our walk, right? It's the why.
Yeah.
Culture is the how. It's how we enact the things that doctrine tells us. And culture is a place where sometimes we can get it wrong
Mm-hmm.
because we're human, and the church is full of humans, and humans are guided by the ideas that they're surrounded by. We're brought up to adopt ideas from the worldly culture around us. And I don't even mean that in a negative way, like
No.
worldly as in sinful, but just, you know.
Well, I mean, sometimes the modern church of the time will do things culturally that will counteract what is going on secularly.
Right.
Wow. Words.
You're so cute.
Oh, God.
Secularly.
Secularly.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, you know, like, not when I say culture, I don't want people to hear that as a stigma either, right? Our culture is beautiful. Church culture is beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, culture is an amazing thing, even if it doesn't directly relate to faith, right? I'm Southern. I love Southern food. I love Southern music. I love Southern culture. I can also stand from where I am as a multi-generation Southern woman and recognize that there's some problems with Southern culture, and there has been for many generations, right? We have so many ghosts. So what we're asking everyone to do is really just to hold these two things up to the light together, right? Doctrine and culture. And we're going to think a little bit about how these relate to our attitudes around what makes someone feminine and what makes someone masculine. But that's just the background. I want to talk about two kind of flavors of people, right? And I'm going to generalize in this conversation, and, you know, I'm going to paint with a broad brush so I don't feel like I'm calling anybody out. So if you're listening to this and you feel like this resonates with your story, that's great. But I'm not going to try to get too specific because I don't want anyone to feel like I'm talking about their story in front of a bunch of people. So the first flavor I'm going to talk about are, and I'm making air quotes here, smart women, right?
Yeah.
And what I mean by that are women who have pursued success in either academics or business or a ministry. They've pursued achievement in those areas, and they've accomplished those things
outside of a relationship with a man.
Right. Yeah. Regardless of their relationship.
No, I'm saying that specifically because that I've noticed that that's less of a issue if you're already married.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Whereas if you're single and that happens, we're running into where there might be intimidation or different viewpoints on it if you've pursued it on your own outside of a relationship.
Sure. So, you know, these are women that might have like advanced degrees. You know, we work with a lot of women who are nurse practitioners. We work with a lot of women who are highly educated, who are maybe in the legal field, who are in executive, you know, structures and companies.
Yeah, some flavor of doctorate.
Yeah, yeah. They're you know, absolute powerhouses in their professions.
Yeah.
Right? We work with some financially very, very successful women who have.
They're actually the top of our demographics in terms of income.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
last time we looked.
Yeah. I think that still holds true. You know, they are running businesses. They are just, again, just really incredible, powerful women from the perspective of what society views as powerful, right? They're educated.
Yeah.
They're financially stable, and they targeted big goals and they hit them. Sometimes that's specific to ministry. So we have a lot of women in our pipeline who are licensed ministers, who might hold Bible college degrees, some who have been actively involved in the missions field by themselves for many years.
Yeah.
In various parts of the world, some in very challenging parts of the world. And so they are deeply committed to their ministries. Some of them are platform ministers and speakers. So what I'm describing are women who um, are powerful. And I mean that in the most positive way possible. And I have to specify that because as soon as I say powerful women, I know in our culture, there's a little bit of a stigma attached to that.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think, and I'm going to try to, I have big feelings about this topic, as we
All
say.
right. Yeah, we say to our toddler, "Are you having big feelings?"
Yeah, I have big feelings about this topic because I relate to women in this position.
Yeah.
And I come from a long line of this kind of woman,
Yeah.
which is powerful, driven women. My mom has a doctorate. She has an EDD. She has many advanced degrees and is just an incredible, incredible educator. Has been my entire life. Always so motivated. She was a full-time music minister and a full-time parent and a full-time teacher and a full-time student most of my life.
Wow. Wow. 8 months pregnant.
Not the entire time.
No, but I'm saying at one point she was doing all those things and was
she
pregnant.
was writing her dissertation and having my brother. And it, she has always been in a league of her own. Just, I mean, incredibly powerful. My grandmother is her mother is cut from the same cloth, right? Just
Yeah.
she is, the matriarch of our church and is just, a powerhouse. She was a career woman in a time when it was difficult to be a career woman in a field that was dominated by men.
Yeah.
So anyway,
You don't tell Nana that she can't do something.
You do not.
Because she'll do it
Better than you.
better than you and faster
Twice.
than you.
Right.
Faster than you ever expected it to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, she's amazing and
While standing on one leg with her hand tied behind her back.
yeah, she can run circles around me to this day. I get out of breath just watching her. She's amazing. And so I have always been raised to really value that drive in women. Yeah. So I get frustrated that there's a stigma in the church about it. I want to hear from your perspective because you grew up in a different church than I did, right?
Yeah.
That was very familiar to me, that flavor of lady. And you grew up with some powerhouse women in your church that were movers and shakers.
Yeah.
But did you encounter this sort of stigma about women who were powerful or really smart?
Stigma. If there was a stigma about it whenever I was dating, I never specifically noticed it. Mm-hmm. It was definitely present looking back now that I'm adult. I remember friends choosing to not pursue someone after they showed interest. But that being said, I've always been attracted to powerful women.
Yeah.
All my past relationships, including you, obviously, were all people who were very smart, driven people.
Yeah.
And when push came to shove, for some reason, I was attracted to that.
Yeah.
It didn't intimidate me, but I also have a sister who is a bulldog.
Right. You mean that as a compliment.
Yeah, no, in a good way.
I don't know that everyone would hear that as the compliment that you're making. Oh,
sure. For me,
you mean that as being tenacious.
Yeah, she passed her CPA exam with a 90+% the first time, which is brilliant. Incredibly hard to do. She was always top of her class. She's pushed me hard with my finances growing up as a teenager. Didn't give me taught me, but also didn't give me a choice to do certain things with my finances, and it helped me in the long run to be in a very good position when we got married.
Yeah.
So that's what I was used to.
Mm-hmm.
I knew people though, that when they found out that they were too driven, that it became a turnoff.
Yeah.
And not for good reasons other than their masculinity was in check.
Okay, so let's unpack that, because that's the core of this. Like, my hypothesis is that the stigma against smart women comes from us raising generations of men who aren't confident in themselves to a degree.
That's definitely a factor.
Because I believe that the stigma comes from a feeling of being threatened, right?
Mhm.
Maybe not directly, not like this woman is a threat to me, but this woman and standing in her power, exercising the gifts that God's given her to the extent that she is, compromises, I'm pretending to be the guy here, compromises me as a man.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like I stack up.
That has something to do with it, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But something that stands out more to me is it's more of a comparison to who their mother was in the role of a relationship with their father. So the people I have in my mind of examples
Mm-hmm.
all had moms who were, again, air quotes, very like submitted to their husbands.
Very passive.
Not more than just biblical.
Right.
Submission.
Not necessarily
like
just headship, but
yes.
like subjection.
Yeah. And not in like an unhealthy way, or that's just the roles. That's just the way their house was built. And
very traditional gender
like
roles.
the dad was a very powerful figure and was the breadwinner, and possibly also struggled with masculinity issues. Like, so they were going by their examples, right? And so when push came to shove and they were dating and they met someone that was, air quotes, more powerful than them, they didn't pursue the relationship much further than that.
And that makes sense, because a lot of us want to see a version of the family that we're comfortable with.
Yeah. Again, hindsight's 2020. Like, I didn't notice this back then.
Right.
But looking at it now, I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and it makes sense, because I think we want to envision, most of us come from families where we can look at the family we grew up in and say, okay, here's some things that I don't want to repeat, and here's some things that I do.
Yeah, sure.
But I think all of us seek to some degree, replicate a comfortable family structure for us.
Yeah.
And if you grew up in a family where there were very traditional gender roles, and when I say traditional here, I mean American traditional.
Yeah, American.
Western traditional, not biblical tradition, right?
Yeah.
But that patriarchal focus, this is really this idea that developed in the 1940s and 1950s in the post-war era, right? Of a single family home where the man is the breadwinner and the woman is taking care of the home.
Yeah.
Steep division in income, right? And responsibilities. That's really an artifact of the 1950s to a degree. And there were moments in history where it was like that as well. I don't want to say that that's exactly where it originated, but
sure,
the idea
the most modern trickle down.
Right. The idea that we have in our minds of what a quote unquote traditional marriage and a traditional home looks like really came from that era of, what happened during the baby boom after the war.
I think of it of like the Sears and Roebuck, like
the
years where you could buy a house and a white picket fence on a catalog.
and you had
mortgages became a big thing, and
right.
Anyways,
it's like the Leave It to Beaver generation of the mom in the pressed cotton house dresses with a string of pearls, and the dad coming home with his suit jacket over one arm. Honey, I'm home. Like it's this Americana picture that we have developed during that time. And there's nothing. I want to say, like, there's nothing morally wrong with that picture.
No, there's not. But it where it becomes an issue is when a man belittles himself for not being a certain image or having a certain type of masculinity that we as a whole, as a group of people, perceive to be not the right masculine.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about our second group of people, because you just gave me a great segue.
Okay.
So the second group of people I want to talk about are gentle men.
Yeah.
Men who are gentle. And the phrase that you just used, not the right type of masculinity, I feel like is sort of the stigma that's attached to this group of men.
Yeah.
Right.
We want to caveat also, again, not that the other forms of masculinity are wrong.
So when I'm talking about this idea of gentlemen, I'm not talking about I'm not saying that traditionally masculine men aren't capable of gentleness, right?
Yeah.
By any stretch. You know, I'm specifically talking about men who sort of defy the hyper masculinity that our culture says is what men should be. We've talked about this before, right?
Let's define that real quick, so that way we can show the opposite of what we're talking about.
Right. So, when we think about like a manly man, right? When I say that phrase, what comes to your mind? A manly man, a man's man. Or what celebrity images come to your mind? Let's say to find someone everyone knows.
Hugh Jackman.
Yeah. Wolverine. Okay. Chris Hemsworth.
Jensen Ackles.
Okay. Manly, masculine actors who portray some violence and some conflict, right?
Brooding.
Right.
Like doesn't like to talk about feelings.
These are caricatures.
Yeah,
right?
caricatures. There you go.
Yeah, like, you know, we've joked before about how it's like the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, right, sort of image of what masculinity is.
Speaking of masculinity,
right? So
testosterone.
Okay, so heavily muscled, potentially violent, large-bodied men.
I also think of like jack of all trades, right? I think of like the handyman, carpenter, like can fix anything,
right?
Even goes to electronics too these days. Like that, it's maybe not physical, like woodworking, but like can put their mind to something and try to fix it.
There's the perception of a man who works with his hands, right?
Yeah.
Like from a woman's perspective, like the stereotypes that circulate in our circles are like, you know, men who wear uniforms, men who have tool belts, men who can fix your car, right? There's something very attractive about that image, and again, none of this is bad. I love that you know how to fix our car a lot of the times. It's great. But it's more about the fact that we've prioritized this kind of hyper masculinity as a goal.
Yeah.
And there are men who perfectly embody biblical masculinity.
Yeah.
That don't hit all of those points in the American hypermasculine space, right?
Yeah. Again, those forms of masculinity we're talking about are perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But we're talking about biblical masculinity that hits very different tones than what we all as a society view as masculine.
Right. Like I'm going to use an example of a gentleman. I'm going back to my family again, but my dad, I think, fits this trope. And my dad is a man's man in a lot of ways. Like he's a hunter.
He can skin a deer 3 different ways. Like,
yeah. I know. I've always said if he weren't just absolutely full of the love of Jesus, like I'd be worried about him because like he really knows what to do with like, you know, a dead animal.
Knives and guns.
No, but he's like, my dad is one of the most gentle and soft-spoken people I know, right? He is incredibly kind-hearted and tender-hearted.
Yeah.
This man will cry at every funeral, whether he knows you or not, right?
He would literally give the shirt off his back as long as he stayed modest.
Yeah. So true. And he fits a lot of, you know, what we think of as like masculine stereotypes in a lot of ways. He knows how to use tools.
Yeah.
He takes care of his yard, right? He knows his way around firearms in the woods and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he'll work himself to death to finish a project.
Right.
Too.
He's a smaller bodied man on the whole, I think, like in the spectrum of things. He's got a kind of lean athletic body. On the smaller side, I come from a family of short people.
I'm sorry to our children.
Yeah, I know. The genes might not be with them.
Hopefully they'll get my height genes.
Yeah. Fingers crossed for them. But yeah, so like he is a gentle man, right? Like to the point where like it comes up at church a lot, you know, that he is one of the like my dad for years led a Boy Scout troop at our church.
Yeah.
And there are so many men who are in church now that were the sons of single mothers that
Yeah.
my dad stepped in and taught them how to bait a hook and took them out and taught them how to camp and, chased them around all summer at summer camp. And
yeah, him and Brother Schaefer.
yeah, and just kept them kind of on the straight and narrow, who are walking in truth today, I believe, just because they had an example. But my dad is also someone who will never raise his voice in a conflict.
Mm-mm.
Right. I have seen my dad angry. Maybe I can count it on one hand the number of times in my life I've seen him angry, and never at me. Right.
Oh, of course not.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can do no wrong.
I know. I'm a daddy's girl. What can I say? But anyway, so I'm trying. We're making stereotypes, and it's not a clean division. But men who do not track close to American stereotypes about what masculinity look like sometimes get left out of the equation in the dating space.
Yeah.
Because women are taught, again, leaning on our host of romance novels that we've been exposed to, and chick flicks and sitcoms, and the things that we've been fed as women to tell us what men should be.
Yeah.
Right. That men are larger, capable of being more powerful than us, right? Physically, maybe also financially, maybe also in other ways. Like media idolizes the hypermasculine man that a woman tames.
Yeah.
Which is a weird thing to say, but that shows up a lot, right? Like this, big, bulky superhero capable of destroying the world, and the small, frail human reporter or whatever
Damsel in distress.
is able to bring him back down to earth. That's a trope that we've been fed. So the gentle man who's in control of his emotions already, and who's peaceful and soft-spoken and content and has built a lifestyle for himself that is wholesome and good and gentle
and knows how to communicate, probably.
Right, and expresses his emotions.
Yeah.
That level of control and discipline is beautiful, and it's scriptural.
Yeah.
That's what Paul talks about as the characteristics of a deacon or someone who should lead in the church, right? They have temperance. They're in control of themselves.
What's funny is if you look at masculinity in today's culture, how does that compare to the fruits of the Spirit?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not trying to
almost antithetical sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not trying to knock everyone who has muscles. That has nothing to do with it.
No, this isn't really about physique, guys.
No, it has nothing to do with physique in this point. But if you look at the typical masculinity and compare that to the fruits of the Spirit, it usually does not match up very well.
Right.
And so, what are we trying to say here?
Okay. So, I know lots of smart women, right? Powerful women and gentle men who have been, to one degree or another, sort of left on the outskirts of the dating scene because they are perceived as being too much of something, right?
Yeah.
In our dating culture. And I think this is more of a call to action for people to really challenge, again, their assessment of what masculinity and femininity means in the context of scripture, and hold that up against some of the preferences that they have for people.
Yeah.
Because I hear all the time in my consultations with women, I really want a traditionally masculine man. And they'll list off everything I just talked about. Larger bodied, powerful, capable, works with his hands, all these other things. Again, nothing wrong with that, right? I'll hear the same thing from men. They want someone who is submissive and very gentle and very maternal sometimes. Again, nothing wrong with that. But because we narrow our focus down so much, we sometimes miss the fact that these people in these categories, smart women and gentle men, can fulfill the roles that we're looking for in spouses because of those characteristics.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to our marriage really quickly. And again, this is not me we're not trying to create couples in our image, right?
No.
What works for us doesn't work for everyone.
There'd be so much dirty laundry. Sorry.
We mean that literally. We have a problem with laundry. Not like dirty laundry, like weird baggage.
No, we just wash it and then just have baskets of clean clothes all over the house.
Yeah, it's a problem, guys. But I mean, we fit this stereotype, right? To a degree.
Yeah.
I am a bit of a brainy, career-minded lady. And you are a very calm, emotionally intelligent, gentle man. And it really works well for us.
Yeah.
Honestly, go ahead.
I'm a little bit of a weirdo. Like, I also enjoy fixing stuff. I also like building things. I also like doing all the other traditional things too.
Sure, and I like cooking and having babies. Like
yeah.
you and I fit into traditional gender roles, I think, as well. But my point is, I wasn't turned off by your gentleness and the fact that you were willing to talk about your emotions. I think on one of our early conversations, I saw you cry talking about your childhood.
That's pretty traumatic. So
yeah, but I mean, you were vulnerable, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you weren't quote unquote stereotypically masculine in that you were more than willing to talk about your emotions, and you had a really complex and healthy vocabulary around it. Right?
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, you're also really gentle in terms of how you deal with other people and how you deal with our children. And of the two of us, I hope you don't mind me phrasing it this way, you are probably the less career-minded in the sense that, like, I'm the one more likely to work for a company.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? Like, you're more the entrepreneur, but...
No, not the beekeeper.
Yeah. Yeah, go figure. Like, you know, we've talked about this before. We've gone through seasons where you've been the stay-at-home parent.
Yeah, and I loved it.
Yeah, and I've been the primary breadwinner.
Mm-hmm.
And those roles have worked very well for us. And I understand that they won't work for everybody. But if I were put off by the parts of you that are gentle, I would be missing out on this amazing opportunity to build a life with someone who complements me very well as a woman who is career-minded and is driven to go to school a whole bunch and is driven to, you know, create businesses and whatever we're doing here. Like, I need that counterpart.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think it compromises the fact that you're the spiritual head of our home.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and you wear that mantle of priesthood, even if I'm the one bringing home the bigger paycheck.
Yeah.
Right. And vice versa. I think, like you said before, you aren't intimidated by me being brainy.
No, absolutely not. I know I married up.
I don't even like the phrase though, married up, because it makes it sound like there's a value judgment there.
No, I know. It's a joke between me and a couple of my friends.
Yeah. But I mean, like we knew early on, like I was going to be the academic one.
No, absolutely.
You know, and that's how it's worked for us, and it's been good. I hope you feel like it's been good.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. The thing is I think it comes down to just evaluating your expectations, because wanting the traditional form of whatever side of the gender scale you're on
Mm-hmm.
is sometimes putting you in a box.
Mm.
And to be open to people that you probably didn't consider before.
Yeah. I want to circle back a little bit to one other thing that we didn't really talk about, which is that I think one of the concerns that some men might have with a woman who is sort of this powerful figure of a woman that we've talked about, right? Is this idea of, but what about submission? And I don't think we have enough time to unpack the entirety of what biblical submission means. And I don't even know if we're the right ones to really unpack that. But I want to encourage someone to think about submission in the sense that, like, a woman being powerful in society does not mean she's incapable of submitting to her spouse in the way that we talk about biblically, right? Which is...
I think that's a common misconception.
I agree. Like, headship is about who wears the mantle of authority. It's about someone who takes ownership of a type of responsibility in the family.
Yeah.
As my husband, you carry the mantle of being the protector of our family spiritually and frankly physically. If there's a roach, I'm calling you. But also you have agreed, because we signed up to be married according to the script that God gave us in Scripture.
Yeah.
You signed up to be the person who, when push comes to shove, you are going to make the decisions for the direction that our family takes and help architect the vision for where our family goes.
Yeah.
And if you are the watchman on the wall of our household, and if you see something come into the home that you get checked in your spirit about, you turn us away from it.
Yeah.
And you do that now, like with what we watch with the kids or what we do. Like you are that figure in our home, even though I am a quote unquote powerful woman.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I want to just encourage people to give themselves the freedom to explore connections with people who maybe don't fit the stereotypes that you were trained to believe you needed.
Yeah.
Because not fitting American ideas of masculinity or feminine subjection doesn't mean that they can't fit biblical definitions of those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to kind of tell one last story to end it.
Uh-oh.
No, it's a good story. So I think we might have talked about this before, but we had a marriage retreat at our church a while ago. Amazing retreat. Adam and Carissa of Dear Young Married Couple were the hosts of it, or the clinicians, I guess, and transformative, incredible.
It was fantastic.
But we were very blessed to be there, and our marriage ministry team did a great job of putting it on. And so they were playing games at different points. And at one point they played this game where they brought a bunch of married couples up to the platform, and they gave each of the husbands a verse from the Song of Solomon.
Yeah.
And the instructions were each husband had to read this verse as romantically as he could. Right.
Gave me so much anxiety.
Yeah. Your poor little dyslexic self.
Oh, dude, I was panicking.
It was the wrong activity for us to volunteer for.
Let me jump over a bunch of chairs. Got you. Let me do anything else. Sure. Read out loud. Oh God.
Yeah, I know. I felt so bad for you as soon as I heard what the activity was. But we were up there too. There was like 4 couples. And they passed out these little slips of paper, and everyone was laughing, and they were all couples of different ages. And the last couple was a man that I grew up, he was one of my first Sunday school teachers, and his wife was our Sunday school director for years. And they are very normal people, right? They're very they're sort of your average family. He does not fit stereotypical American masculinity. He is a small-bodied man. He is very, very soft-spoken, very, very gentle in his speech. Spent most of his time in ministry working with very young children alongside his wife.
Yeah.
And was incredible. I mean, I have memories as a 31-year-old of the lessons that he taught me when I was 4, because of how beautifully he illustrated the Bible to me as a 4-year-old. I mean, just he's gifted, right?
Yeah.
And he's very quiet and very gentle, and even someone that I think if he were to land back on Singles Island suddenly, which I hope he never does, I think it'd be easy for someone to kind of overlook him because of how gentle and quiet he is, right? He has been a dedicated husband to his wife for, gosh, they've probably been married. I don't even know how long they've been married. I mean, I'm sure it's been probably getting close to 40 years now. When I tell you that this man took this scripture and he held his wife's hand and
melted our hearts, man.
He looked into her eyes and he read this verse in his little sweet, gentle voice with this sincerity that can only come from just dedicating yourself to this person. And his wife just sat there and beamed at him as though he were the most gorgeous man she had ever seen, and she turned bright red.
Yeah.
And
they looked like they had just gotten back from their honeymoon.
Yeah. I mean, it was beautiful. And I don't know their marriage. I don't know what happens behind closed doors.
Oh, sure.
But I know that they've been through things together. I know that she's been through health challenges. I know that they've had to struggle, and they don't fit the stereotypes, and they've built this beautiful partnership and have this romance that was so evident to everyone in the room. They won, obviously. They won.
Yeah.
But it touched everyone's heart.
Not much competition up against me reading out loud.
Yeah. It was beautiful. It was breathtakingly beautiful. And it will stick with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And it made me think, how tragic would it be if there were men like that who were able to live out godly masculinity in such a beautiful way, dedicate themselves to their spouse in such a beautiful way, and be overlooked, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about the powerful women in my life, right? Like, what if my mom's absolute powerhouseness had frightened off my dad? You know, I'm grateful that he's not intimidated by that, and he celebrates how strong she is and how smart she is and how gifted she is at her work, and has always supported her in her ministries and in her efforts, you know?
Yeah.
And I just think it's a gift for people to be able to really celebrate each other's complementary strengths. And I don't think we should be scared of them when they're very, very different from our own, or very, very different from what American society says is, you know, what we should be attracted to. And that is my soapbox.
Your raspy voice soapbox.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope this didn't step on too many people's toes. I also want to say, preferences are preferences, and we're not here trying to make you change what you like.
Mm-mm.
We just don't want you, like Stephen said, to be putting yourself in a box.
Yeah. And it's one of those things is we are trying to push a couple people out of their comfort zone only because we know that some people in their extended loneliness can also put themselves in boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to be able to say, hey, there might be more options out there for you that you might like as well.
I mean, our tagline is transforming apostolic dating culture and ending loneliness in the church, right?
Yeah.
Transforming the culture means we're taking a hard look at the things that we've come to believe are truth and going, is this doctrine? Is it Bible? Or is it just how we do things?
Yeah.
Right? And if there are places where how we've come to do things as a church culture is holding people back from building great partnerships, we can throw those out, right? Or we can shift them a little bit without compromising biblical truth about being, you know, husband and wife, male and female.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we just want people to think critically about.
That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
We wanted people to think critically about their choices and their preferences.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you just adjust a couple things, there might be someone right next to you that you didn't realize, or you never considered that could be a potential spouse.
Yeah.
Any updates?
We are looking forward to being in Jacksonville on Friday, May 3rd, which is just this coming Friday.
Yeah.
For the Florida District Hyphen Rally. That is at the Church of Pentecost. Thank you to everyone who told us what the Jacksonville Church, the Olson's Church's name actually is.
And sorry for not Googling it sooner.
I know. We're just bad researchers there. But we're really excited. Thanks again to the team that's been putting that together. And yeah, the only other thing to kind of tease is we've been talking to a lot of potential podcast guests.
Yes, we are very excited for that.
Yeah, so we're figuring all that out and putting our infrastructure together.
And just learning how to podcast remotely and moving equipment and stuff. So there's some growing pains.
I also have one praise report.
Uh-oh.
This has been our first double match week.
Ooh.
And by that I mean that multiple people who met on synchrony dates this week opted to continue talking to each other and thought that they had a great connection from the get-go.
That's fantastic.
It's really exciting, and both of the pairs that I'm thinking of were people that are just like, I mean, just really great fits in a lot of ways, just very closely aligned. So
not trying to put pressure on y'all.
Right.
But we're excited for you.
Yeah, it will go where it goes, and we want them to use their discernment and instinct to know where it should go next. But it's really gratifying when people can go like, oh yeah, I see why this person's a good fit, and they see the characteristics that line up.
Oh, do you want to give an update on the course?
Oh yeah, so
oh yeah,
I just went real Minnesota all of a sudden.
Midwestern.
I apologize to everyone in Minnesota that I just completely offended with my bad accent. So we're working on a course right now. I think it's actually going to end up being a series of smaller courses because what I have built is too big.
It's a little too robust.
I have a problem where when I start writing, I'm like, this is fine. And then I realize that I have written too many words.
See, that is always the opposite problem for me.
I know.
What you have written in like a couple weeks would take me years to write.
Right now we're piloting this one exercise. It's just one chunk of the course that I extracted out to have people test it out for me to see what they think. And I thought it was going to be like, a couple pages long. It's 10 pages. I'm so sorry. Thank you to the folks who are guinea pigging that for me. But yeah, so we're putting together this course that I'm really excited about that's going to help prepare people to make connections and do things like help them challenge biases and assumptions that they have about what they need, and also help them address any barriers that might be kind of holding people back from connecting with them. We should probably do a conversation about dating barriers and what those mean.
Yeah, that'd be a good podcast.
Yeah, we'll think about that maybe for next time. But anyway, so we're really excited about that, and I think that's going to add a lot of value. So that's going to be something that we put out for free to the people that are already part of the Synchrony community.
Yep.
And to those who aren't yet, I think we're going to be making it available to them for something really affordable. So keep an eye out for that. If you are someone who did a consultation before we launched in April, remember you just have a few days left to scoot in with that discounted legacy membership to the Synchrony community. So please check your email for our legacy members, as we call them, to make sure that you get into that with that discount. And otherwise, thanks to everyone who is sharing and referring people to us.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. Like, I've met people over the past couple of weeks who said, I would not have tried this if so-and-so hadn't suggested it to me. And I'm excited to be putting them in conversation with people.
I know. It's humbling.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you guys for listening to us yet again for the 12th episode.
I know.
Hey, babe.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too.
I'm really excited that we're doing this.
I am too. I am excited and nervous for this next week.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
We got most of our booth put together for this Friday.
Yeah. I really hope we don't forget anything.
We probably will.
Yeah. We'll try to make it something small.
Yep. Well, thank you guys. We will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.